Mayonnaise is one of the most consumed condiments in Australian households. It goes on sandwiches, into salads, alongside hot chips, through coleslaw, and into dozens of recipes that Australians make every single week without giving the ingredient a second thought. Most people assume that mayonnaise is a simple natural product. Eggs, oil, a little vinegar or lemon juice, maybe some mustard. A traditional emulsion that has been made in home kitchens for centuries. That is the impression the packaging communicates. That is what the word mayonnaise implies. But here is what the Australian condiment industry does not want you to look at too carefully. Some of the most popular mayonnaise brands on Australian supermarket shelves, products that sit in millions of fridges right now, use ingredient lists that would genuinely shock most consumers if they read them closely. Products that contain modified starch thickeners in place of adequate egg content. Products where the oil being used is the cheapest refined vegetable oil available, rather than anything that resembles quality. Products where preservative systems, acidity regulators, flavor enhancers, and emulsifier blends are doing the work that real ingredients should be doing. And products where the word egg appears on the front of the packaging in a way designed to create an impression of wholesome natural content that the actual egg quantity buried in the small print on the back does not support. I have spent weeks going through this category. I have examined the ingredient lists and nutritional panels of every major mayonnaise brand available at Woolworths, Coles, and Aldi Australia. I have reviewed Choice Australia assessments of condiment products, gone through food standards, Australia-New Zealand documentation on labelling requirements for egg-containing products, cross-referenced processing technology used in commercial mayonnaise manufacture, and looked at what independent food scientists and dietitians have said about the gap between traditional mayonnaise and the industrial products that dominate Australian supermarket shelves today. What I found is a category where labelling conventions, ingredient substitution practices, and marketing language have combined to create products that bear the name mayonnaise, while often sharing very little with what that word has traditionally meant. And where the health implications of what has been substituted and the value implications of what you are actually paying for are things every Australian household deserves to understand before their next shopping trip. Before we go any further, I want to be absolutely clear about the basis of this video. This is not about claiming that any of these products are unsafe to eat. All of the products we will discuss are approved under Australian food standards. This is about the gap between what these brands communicate through their marketing and packaging, and what independent analysis of their ingredient lists and formulations actually reveals. That gap is real, it is significant, and it is costing Australian consumers both money and nutritional value they believe they are getting. Australia's retail mayonnaise market is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. The category is dominated by a small number of large food manufacturers who have progressively reformulated their products over the decades to reduce ingredient costs, extend shelf life, and improve production consistency. Each of those goals is understandable from a manufacturing economics perspective. But the cumulative effect of those reformulations is products that are increasingly distant from traditional mayonnaise, while continuing to be presented and priced as though they are the real thing. Understanding that distance is what this video is about. Let us get into it. Number 1. Hellmann's. Hellmann's is the global mayonnaise brand that most Australians associate with premium quality in the category. It is sold at Woolworths and Coles at a price point that sits above home brand alternatives, and it carries an international reputation built over more than a century that creates powerful implicit quality credentials before a consumer has even looked at the label. For many Australian shoppers, Hellmann's is simply the benchmark. It is what good mayonnaise looks like. The brand is owned by Unilever, one of the world's largest food companies, and it has been reformulated multiple times over the decades, as Unilever has sought to optimize manufacturing costs, extend shelf life, and standardize production across global markets. And that reformulation history is precisely where the gap between the Hellmann's brand identity and the product's actual composition begins to open up. The ingredient list of Hellmann's real mayonnaise in Australia reads as follows: canola oil, water, whole egg and egg yolk, vinegar, sugar, salt, lemon juice, calcium disodium EDTA. Let us examine what this tells us about the product. The first two ingredients are canola oil and water. Traditional mayonnaise is an emulsion of oil and egg yolk, Water is not a traditional mayonnaise ingredient. It is present here because adding water allows the manufacturer to use less of the more expensive ingredients, primarily oil and egg, while achieving a similar volume and texture in the finished product. The egg content of Hellmann's real mayonnaise is listed as whole egg and egg yolk, appearing third and fourth in the ingredient list, after canola oil and water. Under Australian food labelling regulations, ingredients must be listed in descending order or order by weight. The positioning of egg after water in the ingredient list indicates that there is more water in this product than there is egg. Independent food scientist commentary on commercial mayonnaise formulations has noted that many industrial products contain egg levels significantly below what traditional recipes and what consumer expectations associated with the word mayonnaise would imply. Calcium disodium EDTA is listed as the final ingredient. This is a chelating agent and preservative used to prevent oxidation of the oils in the product, extending shelf life by binding metal ions that would otherwise catalyze rancidity. It is a synthetic preservative not present in traditionally made mayonnaise. Food Standards Australia. New Zealand approves its use at specified levels, and the quantities present in mayonnaise are not considered a safety concern. However, its presence is an indicator of the industrial preservation engineering that underlies a product whose marketing emphasizes natural and real ingredients. The canola oil used in Hellmann's is refined canola oil, a highly processed oil that has been extracted using industrial solvents, then refined, bleached, and deodorized to remove the natural compounds that give cold-pressed oils their flavor and color characteristics. Traditional mayonnaise was made with olive oil or other cold-pressed oils. The shift to refined canola oil dramatically reduces the flavor complexity of the finished product, while substantially lowering ingredient costs. Hellmann's real mayonnaise retails at Woolworths and Coles for approximately $5 to $7 per 405-gram jar, which represents $12 to $17 per kilogram. Consumer value assessments suggest that the Hellmann's premium over home brand alternatives reflects brand equity and marketing investment, rather than ingredient quality or egg content that meaningfully distinguishes it from cheaper options. Independent comparisons of Hellmann's against home brand mayonnaise have found nutritional profiles and ingredient lists that are broadly comparable, with the primary differentiator being brand recognition rather than product substance. When you buy Hellmann's at a premium over cheaper alternatives, what independent analysis of the ingredient list suggests is that you are paying for a product where water appears before egg. Canola oil is the primary ingredient, and a synthetic preservative extends shelf life, with the premium pricing reflecting a century of brand investment rather than ingredient quality that the formulation consistently supports. Number 2, S&W mayonnaise. S&W is a brand that has maintained a consistent presence in Australian supermarkets for many years, positioned as a trusted and reliable pantry staple across multiple condiment and canned food categories. The mayonnaise sits in the middle of the market, priced between home brand alternatives and premium positioning products, and it relies substantially on long-standing brand familiarity to drive purchases, rather than active health or quality claims. What independent examination of the S&W mayonnaise ingredient list reveals is a formulation that illustrates with particular clarity the ingredient substitution practices that have become standard across the industrial mayonnaise category in Australia. The S&W ingredient list includes canola oil, water, sugar, whole egg, vinegar, modified starch, salt, and a range of preservatives and acidity regulators, including potassium sorbate and calcium disodium EDTA. The presence of modified starch in S&W mayonnaise is the element that most clearly distinguishes it from traditional mayonnaise formulation, and that most consumers would find significant if it were communicated as clearly on the front of the packaging as the word mayonnaise itself. Modified starch is a processed carbohydrate derived from corn, wheat, tapioca, or potato that has been chemically or physically altered to change its functional properties, primarily its thickening and stabilizing behavior under different temperature and processing conditions. In commercial mayonnaise, modified starch serves as a partial replacement for egg yolk as the primary emulsifying and thickening agent. Traditional mayonnaise achieves its characteristic thick, creamy texture through the emulsifying properties of egg yolk lecithin, a naturally occurring phospholipid. When egg content is reduced below the level required to achieve that texture naturally, modified starch is added to compensate. and achieve the desired viscosity and stability in the finished product. The implications of this substitution are both nutritional and qualitative. From a nutritional perspective, modified starch adds refined carbohydrate calories to a product that, in its traditional form, derives its caloric content almost entirely from fat and protein from oil and egg. From a quality perspective, the texture achieved through modified starch thickening is different from that achieved through proper egg emulsification. Food scientists describe modified starch texture as characteristically gluey or pasty, compared to the richer, smoother mouthfeel of properly emulsified egg-based mayonnaise. The sugar content of S&W mayonnaise warrants separate attention. Sugar appears third in the ingredient list, before whole egg, indicating that S&W mayonnaise contains more sugar by weight than it contains egg. Traditional mayonnaise contains no added sugar or minimal amounts for balance. The high sugar positioning in the S&W ingredient hierarchy reflects a formulation approach designed to achieve palatability and flavor balance through sweetness, rather than through the richness of quality eggs and oil. Independent nutritional analysis has noted that the added sugar in commercial mayonnaise products contributes to a nutritional profile meaningfully different from what traditional mayonnaise formulations delivered. Number 3. Praise Mayonnaise. Praise is one of the most recognized mayonnaise brands in Australia, owned by Cerebos Australia, and distributed through Woolworths, Coles, and independent supermarkets nationally. The brand has a long history in the Australian market and benefits from the kind of deep familiarity that drives habitual purchasing without active evaluation. For many Australian households, praise is simply what you reach for when you need mayonnaise, a decision made on autopilot rather than through any considered assessment of the product. That habitual purchasing pattern is something Praise's marketing actively supports without encouraging consumers to look too closely at the ingredient list. And when independent analysis examines what is in Praise full cream mayonnaise, the findings raise questions that the brand's comfortable, familiar positioning is designed to prevent consumers from asking. Praise full cream mayonnaise contains canola oil, water, whole egg, vinegar, sugar, modified starch, thickener, 1422, salt, spice extract, and preservatives, including potassium sorbate and calcium disodium EDTA. There are several elements of this ingredient list that deserve close examination. Thickener 1422 is acetylated distarch adipate, a chemically modified starch that has been treated with acetic anhydride and adipic anhydride to alter its gelatinization and retrogradation properties. It provides excellent freeze-thaw stability and resistance to breakdown under acidic conditions, which makes it technically useful in a product like mayonnaise that needs to maintain texture across a range of storage and use conditions. However, like modified starch more broadly, it is a processed additive that serves as a functional substitute for adequate egg content rather than a traditional mayonnaise ingredient. The presence of both modified starch and thickener 1422 in the same formulation indicates a product where two separate starch-based thickening systems are being used. Independent food technology commentary on this kind of dual thickener system suggests it is characteristic of formulations where egg content has been reduced significantly below the level that would achieve the desired texture through natural emulsification alone. You are, in effect, eating a product where the characteristic richness and texture of mayonnaise is being engineered through processed starch chemistry, rather than delivered through the egg content that the word mayonnaise implies. The whole egg content of Praise full cream mayonnaise, while listed in the ingredient list, appears after both canola oil and water, and ahead of vinegar and sugar. The overall impression of egg presence created by the word full cream in the product name and the familiar mayonnaise category positioning is not supported by an ingredient composition that places egg third or fourth by weight in a formulation that also contains two separate starch thickening systems. Praise full cream mayonnaise retails at Woolworths and Coles at prices broadly comparable to Hellmann's, in the range of $5 to $7 per 400-gram jar. Consumer value analysis suggests that the brand premium over home brand alternatives reflects the same dynamic seen across the category. Long-standing brand recognition, doing the work that ingredient quality and formulation transparency are not consistently supporting. Number 4. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise. Heinz is one of the most trusted food brands in Australian history, with a brand authority that extends across condiments, canned foods, and spreads. The Seriously Good sub-brand represents Heinz's premium tier within the mayonnaise category, positioned at Woolworths and Coles as a genuinely superior product with ingredient quality that justifies a price above standard alternatives. The Seriously Good branding is direct and confident. It is not hedging. It is making a quality claim. Independent analysis of Heinz Seriously Good mayonnaise's ingredient list reveals a formulation that raises significant questions about whether the Seriously Good descriptor is supported by what is actually in the jar. The ingredient list includes canola oil, water, whole egg and egg yolk, sugar, vinegar, salt, thickener, 1442, spices, and calcium disodium. EDTA, thickener. 1442 is hydroxypropyl distique phosphate, another chemically modified starch that has been treated with propylene oxide and phosphoric acid to improve its stability and thickening properties across a range of processing and storage conditions. It is the same category of ingredient as the modified starches found in other brands on this list, serving the same functional purpose of providing texture and body, in a formulation where egg content alone is insufficient to achieve the desired viscosity through natural emulsification. The presence of thickener 1442 in a product called Seriously Good mayonnaise is a notable finding. The Seriously Good positioning implies ingredient quality and traditional formulation approach. Modified starch thickening is the opposite of a traditional formulation approach. It is an industrial food technology solution to the challenge of making a low egg product behave texturally like a high egg product. The fact that a premium positioned product within the Heinz range employs this technique indicates that the premium pricing is not primarily driven by a return to traditional egg-rich formulation. The whole egg and egg yolk content, while listed, appears after both canola oil and water in the ingredient hierarchy, and the presence of thickener 1442 alongside it indicates that the egg content is being supplemented by starch-based thickening rather than driving the product's textural characteristics independently. For a product retailing at $8 to $11 per 395 gram jar, which translates to approximately $20 to $28 per kilogram, this represents a significant premium for a formulation that independent food science analysis suggests is structurally similar to products available at considerably lower prices. Consumer watchdog commentary on the Heinz Seriously Good range has noted that the premium positioning and the Seriously Good branding create strong expectations among Australian consumers that the ingredient composition does not always consistently fulfill when examined against what consumers understand the word seriously good to imply in the context of a food product marketed on the basis of quality. Number 5. Coles and Woolworths Home brand mayonnaise. And mayonnaise on this list requires a different framing from the 5 brand name products we have already discussed. The issue with Coles and Woolworths home brand mayonnaise is not the gap between premium positioning and actual composition, because these products do not claim to be premium. The issue is something more fundamental and in some ways more concerning from a consumer information perspective. Coles and Woolworths home brand mayonnaise products are typically the lowest priced mayonnaise options in their respective stores, retailing at approximately $2 to $3 per 440 gram jar. At that price point, the ingredient cost constraints facing the manufacturer are severe, and independent analysis of these products' ingredient lists reflects those constraints in ways that raise questions about whether what is being sold under the name mayonnaise meaningfully fits within that category, as most consumers understand it. The ingredient list of Woolworths home brand mayonnaise includes canola oil, water, sugar, whole egg, modified starch, vinegar, salt, thickeners 1442 and 415, and preservatives potassium sorbate and calcium disodium EDTA. The placement of sugar and modified starch ahead of whole egg in the ingredient hierarchy is striking. This ingredient list indicates a product where the combined weight of sugar and modified starch exceeds the weight of egg content. This is not a mayonnaise where egg is the emulsifying and flavoring foundation of the product. This is a product where starch thickeners and sugar are collectively doing more formulation work than the egg. Thickener 415 is xanthan gum, a polysaccharide produced through bacterial fermentation of carbohydrate. Alongside thickener 1442, it creates a dual hydrocolloid thickening system that provides the textural stability, viscosity, and mouthfeel associated with mayonnaise in the absence of sufficient egg to achieve those characteristics through natural means. The use of 2 separate thickening systems in addition to modified starch, indicates a formulation where the engineering of texture is the primary technical challenge, which only arises when egg content is reduced to levels that compromise natural emulsification. The Coles home brand mayonnaise ingredient list follows a similar structure, with water appearing before egg, multiple thickening systems present, and a preservative package that includes both potassium sorbate and calcium disodium EDTA. Independent food scientist commentary on formulations of this type notes that they represent the furthest evolution of egg replacement technology in commercial mayonnaise, products where the defining characteristic of traditional mayonnaise, its status as a rich egg-based emulsion, has been most substantially engineered away. From a consumer information perspective, the labelling of these products as mayonnaise under Australian food standards regulations is technically permissible. Food standards. Australia-New Zealand does not mandate a minimum egg content for a product to be sold as mayonnaise, which means that the regulatory framework does not currently prevent the marketing of products with very low egg content under the mayonnaise name. Choice Australia has raised this regulatory gap as a consumer information issue, noting that without minimum compositional standards for mayonnaise, consumers have no regulatory protection against products that use the name while bearing very little resemblance to what it has historically described. At $2 to $3 per jar, the home brand products are clearly priced as budget options. The issue is not that they are cheap. The issue is that the name mayonnaise on the label creates an expectation of egg-based content that the formulation, examined through its ingredient list, does not consistently deliver. Consumers buying these products may believe that they are getting a cheap version of a real mayonnaise, when they may in fact be buying a product where modified starch, water, and sugar collectively exceed egg as compositional contributors to the finished product. So, what should you actually be buying? After examining these brands, where the gap between the word mayonnaise and what independent analysis of the ingredient list reveals is significant in different ways, the practical question is what a genuinely better choice looks like and where to find it in Australian supermarkets and beyond. The most reliable indicator of mayonnaise quality is the position of egg in the ingredient list. If you are looking at a mayonnaise and egg, or egg yolk not appear in the first three ingredients, after oil, which legitimately sits first in a properly formulated product, that is a meaningful signal about the product's composition. The presence of modified starch, multiple thickening systems, or xanthan gum in a mayonnaise ingredient list indicates egg replacement technology at work, rather than traditional formulation. Praise whole egg, when compared to praise full cream, illustrates how even within the same brand, meaningful differences can exist. Whole egg variants typically contain higher egg concentrations, and, in some formulations, fewer starch-based thickeners. Reading the specific variant's ingredient list rather than trusting the brand name is essential. S&W whole egg mayonnaise, similarly, can represent a more substantive egg content than standard variants within the range. Again, the ingredient list, not the brand, is the relevant guide. For consumers who want genuine traditionally formulated mayonnaise, the best value proposition in Australian supermarkets is often making it at home. An egg yolk, canola or olive oil, a teaspoon of mustard, a tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar, and salt produces real mayonnaise in under 5 minutes with a stick blender. The ingredient cost is approximately $1 to $2 per batch, equivalent to a small commercial jar. The egg content is 100%, and there are no modified starches, synthetic preservatives, or water dilution. The product you make will have a texture and flavour that most commercially produced mayonnaise in Australia cannot match, because it is doing what mayonnaise is actually supposed to do, which is emulsify egg and oil into a rich, stable, flavourful product. For those who prefer to buy rather than make, specialty food retailers and delicatessens in major Australian cities and regional centres carry genuinely traditional formulated mayonnaise products from smaller producers who use higher egg content, quality oils, and minimal additive systems. These products cost more, typically $10 to $15 for a smaller jar, but the ingredient list reflects what the name implies. If buying at major supermarkets, the most important thing you can do is ignore the front of the packaging entirely and go directly to the ingredient list on the back. Look for egg appearing early. Look for a short ingredient list without multiple thickening systems. Look for an absence of potassium sorbate and calcium disodium EDTA if you prefer a product without synthetic preservatives. Those two criteria alone will help you identify products that more closely reflect what traditional mayonnaise formulation looks like, regardless of the brand name on the front of the jar. The Australian mayonnaise market is a category where decades of reformulation for cost reduction and shelf life extension have progressively moved products away from the simple, egg-rich emulsions that the word mayonnaise describes, while labeling conventions and marketing language have maintained the impression of traditional content that the formulations increasingly do not deliver. Food Standards Australia. New Zealand's lack of a minimum egg content standard for mayonnaise means there is no regulatory flaw preventing this divergence from continuing. You now have the tools to see past the packaging. If this video helped you understand what is actually in the mayonnaise you have been buying at Coles or Woolworths, give it a like and share it with the people in your life who assume the condiments in their fridge are what the labels say they are. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next investigation and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me which brand you have been buying and whether reading this label analysis changes your next shopping decision. I read every single one. The condiment industry counts on you reading the front of the jar and trusting the brand name. Together, we can make sure you always read the back. I will see you in the next one.